Phone sales techniques can feel like a little bit of a gamble. You call a prospect that doesn't know what you do, you talk about something that they may not even ever care about, and then you hope for a meeting. No wonder why cold calling can seem a little bit scary. But what if you had a step-by-step process to follow that turns those calls into controlled conversations that consistently book meetings? That's the power of phone sales mastery, and we're going to get into the 5 steps to book more meetings on the phone in this very video. Like I said a second ago, cold calls can feel like a bit of a guessing game. You call someone pretty random to you. You're not friends with these people when you initially call them, right? You talk about your product and then you hope they're the right person to speak to. You hope that they want to book a meeting with you. And that obviously is not exactly a recipe for sales success. So let's put some process in place here. Now, the key to crushing phone sales is getting in front of the right decision maker. This is the person with the power to say yes or maybe no to your product or service. Because why would you want to waste time with someone who can't actually buy from you? That would be dumb, right? So how do we find this magic person? Simple, we contact them from the very start. We build our cold calling process around finding the right person. So I might say, hey there, quick question, who's in charge of sales over at whatever the company's called? And I'll say it in that way. I'll go, hey there, who exactly is in charge of sales over at the company? So what I'm doing here is coming across polite and conversational, obviously, but I'm stuttering slightly so it sounds less slick than a salesperson who's doing call after call after call after call, because what we don't want to do is elicit this alarm bell in the prospect's brain where they're going, oh, it's a salesperson, let's get rid of them as quick as possible. We want the buyer to answer our question, and there are only 2 scenarios that can occur when we pose this question to them. Scenario 1, which is the dream answer. The prospect goes, oh, that's me. And amazing, you've hit the jackpot. You can now move on to the next step in our phone sales mastery plan. Scenario 2 is that you've actually hit a gatekeeper, and the person on the call might turn around and say, oh, I don't cover that. That's actually Barry over in sales. And that's not ideal, but it's not a dead end. We just need to now get to Barry, and here's how to handle it. I might say, okay, great, thanks. Could you connect me with Barry, please? Or can I tell him that you referred me over? And did you see that last part of that sentence? Mentioning a referral is a power move. It instantly builds rapport with Barry when you jump on the phone with Barry and say, hey, I just spoke to Julie. She referred me over to you. How's it going, mate? And that little referral is the bridge that builds enough trust for Barry to hear you out. So remember, don't skip the referral. It's a small change in your phone sales process that can make a massive difference to engaging with more decision makers. And we're going to talk more about how to handle that conversation with our decision maker, Barry, in the next step. But for now, focus on confirming that you're speaking to the right decision maker. After all, you won't want to put all this time and effort just to end up nowhere, right? And you're not going to end up nowhere if you speak to the right person, because I'm going to show you how to close the deal in the final step of this process. So stay tuned. Okay, so we've just confirmed that we're speaking to the right person, the sales decision maker, in this analogy that I'm making up as I go along here. Now it's time to break them out of the pattern of thinking that most people are in when they pick up the phone, and especially when it's a sales call. And this, if you get nothing from this video other than this one thing of the pattern interrupt, of the break, this is what's going to deliver you the most value as you try and upgrade your cold calling process. Well, most companies have some kind of sales training. If they don't, they don't tend to survive for very long. It might be an in-person, in-house trainer, it might be an external training team that are brought in to improve results like what we do. But that doesn't mean that the buyer's current solution is perfect. And we're not here to badmouth their current solution. I don't want to do that at all. If someone is invested into something, they probably have a little bit of their ego wrapped up in it. And so if you tell them that what they're doing is just shit, then they're going to take it personally and you're never going to get anywhere. But we do want to see if there's any room for improvement. So here's how we break the pattern that the buyer is in and start to explore their current solution. So after I've shared my value proposition with the buyer on the call, I might go, okay, great. Well, Barry, you mentioned that you're using a competitor for sales training. How is that working out for you? And just like the first step, there's only 2 scenarios that can come from this, 2 kind of verging directions of conversation. Scenario 1 is the perfect response. Oh, honestly, it's not ideal. We're struggling with lead conversion. And bingo, this is where we can show how our product can specifically solve the buyer's pain point. And we're going to cover that in the next step. Scenario number 2 is what you're going to get most of the time if we're being real here. And the prospect's going to go, yeah, I think it's going all right. I think we're doing good. Thanks. Now, most salespeople give up here. Don't be discouraged. Even if the buyer seems happy, there is absolutely undoubtedly always room for improvement. And so push to the next step regardless of what the outcome is on this one. The key is to always move forward because there's always something that can be improved. I've done thousands of cold calls myself. I've trained thousands of salespeople who've done thousands, if not tens of thousands of calls. The calls that we've done using this process, it's just insane, the numbers. And if everyone gave up when they got an objection, that first initial objection that comes up almost every time on all of your calls, unless you hit the right person with the right message at exactly the right time, which is very difficult because we're not in control of the timing side of things here, it's likely you're going to get this kind of objection. So this is where we move on to step 3. And so we've exposed some potential cracks in the prospect's current setup. Now it's time to show them your shiny solution, your value proposition. This is where you're going to give the buyer a quick burst of what your product can do to help them, but you've got to keep it absolutely tight. Think of it as a movie trailer that builds just enough interest that the buyer wants to book a call to discuss it further, rather than explaining the whole story. And here is the key. Focus on the biggest problem that they mentioned earlier, or if they said that they're fine, the problem that you find most people in their scenario have, and then how your product directly solves it. So regardless of what the previous answer to the question was, they want to help, they don't want to help, they've got a problem, they don't have a problem, I'm going to turn around and say, okay, cool. We help sales teams find and close more deals in the next 30 days guaranteed. If you don't see results, you get your money back. There's no risk involved. And that is it. So do you see that? It's short, sharp, sweet, it's straight to the point. It hits all of the main points that we need to cover. We address a specific pain point, finding and closing more deals. We offer a guarantee to minimize their risk, and I double down on it, saying that there is no risk. It's very difficult logically for someone to not want to book a meeting on the back of that, because who doesn't want to find and close more deals when there's zero risk in doing so? And Julian Redding mentioned this in a recent Salesman.com podcast.
For me, understanding the language of your customer, understanding how to reframe your value proposition based on your customer's perception of value is the key to unlocking sales during times of change.
And remember, don't get bogged down in the details here. One sentence to the absolute max is all you need to plant the seed. In the next step of the process, we're going to dig a little bit deeper and tie your value proposition directly to their specific problem. And we're going to show them how your product or service is going to make them the hero in their sales story. All right, so we delivered the value proposition, but our job is not done yet. Now it's time to tie it all together. This is where you connect the dots between your amazing offer and the buyer's specific problem. Basically, you've got to show the prospect why they should care. And this plays out in a couple of scenarios. In scenario 1, where there is the struggling sales team, the buyer told us that they want our help at the top of the call. You might say, so it sounds like you're not quite thrilled, is that fair to say, with your current sales training provider? Well, with our program, we've helped companies exactly the same as yours close more deals faster. In scenario 2, where you've got the seemingly content prospect, you might say, even if you are somewhat happy with your current training, wouldn't it be great to get even better results? We can help supercharge your existing training program so that you can train more effective salespeople in less time. So do you see the difference here? We've directly taken our value proposition and we've addressed the situation that the buyer has told us that they are in. And this is so powerful because it personalizes the conversation and it forces the buyer to consider your offer. If you just left it at your generic value proposition, it's easy for the buyer to go, well, I don't think that's a good fit for us. And that is massively subjective, right? They absolutely have the assertive right to say, I don't think that's a good fit for us. But when you tie the problem that they've told you to the value proposition that you've given them in a very logical way of, you said you want this, we can give you that. You said you don't need to improve, but would it make sense to improve this way? It makes the person on the other end of the call feel illogical if they turn down your meeting. And rightly or wrongly, people don't want to appear illogical, which leaves us one more step here, and that is closing the deal by setting up the meeting. All right, we've shown the buyer the value and then we've connected it with their specific problem. And this all happens in 20 or 30 seconds. This is not a 5-minute conversation that you should be having with your prospects on cold calls. And now comes the moment of truth. The close. This is where you go for gold. But don't worry, we're not asking for the sale just yet. We're not asking for anywhere near that part of the sales process. The only goal here is to set up a meeting, a chance to chat more, to learn more about their issues at greater depth, and to potentially show them exactly how your product can help them resolve their issues. So don't blow this out of proportion. You're just asking for 15 minutes, half an hour of someone's time. That is it. You're not trying to close a deal. You're not trying to influence them. You're not trying to do anything other than going, if this has all made sense so far, logically, would it make sense to jump on a quick call? And here's how that might sound. I might say, so from what we've just discussed, it sounds like our program might be, it might not be, it might be a good fit for your needs. Would it make sense to jump a quick call? And we can perhaps run through this in a little bit more detail. So again, do you see what I did there? I was like, this might be might not be. It might be a good fit for you. We're taking all of the pressure off. We're trying to reduce the salesiness of the call itself. We're being assertive. We're always asking for the meeting. We're always following the steps of the process, but with our vocal tonality of going, would it make sense to do this? And then we go up and then come back down. And again, like I said at the top of the video, we're not going super slick and gross and salesy. We're just talking like an actual human being. You're going to find that a lot of prospects are going to go, yeah, that does make sense to jump on a quick call. When's the best time to fit in your diary? They're going to be trying to close you. Now, that's not to say that rejection is not going to be part of the game here. You're going to hear no. Even if you deliver absolutely the perfect call, you follow this process all the way through. And if you want to learn more about cold calling in this process, we cover it in detail in the Selling Made Simple book, which you can find over at salesman.com, completely for free. Just download it and follow the steps. All the scripts are all there as well. It's awesome. Grab that book. It's for free on the website. But even if you follow it all absolutely in detail, you're always going to get a few no's. And that's absolutely okay. Don't weirdly end the call there, which I've seen lots of people do. It's just odd. You put all this time and effort in. At this point, you might as well ask them one more question. So you might say, okay, no worries at all. Just in case things change on your end, does it make sense for me to drop you a quick email to follow up in a few months? That way, you get their permission to stay on their radar. Very few people will tell you to sod off at that point. They'll encourage you to drop them a message to follow up, especially if you've identified a problem that they have, you've shared a value proposition that can resolve that issue, and you tied your value proposition to their specific issue, problem, pain, where they want to get to, whatever it is. So that is the basic 5-step formula for phone sales mastery. And remember, practice makes perfect. The more confident that you get with these steps, the more you do them, the more meetings you're going to book. It's going to create that feedback loop where you're excited to do the calls, because every 3 calls you book a meeting, and you're going to, of course, close more sales. If you want to learn more about phone sales, why not click the video that's on the screen right now and continue making selling simple.